Welcome everybody to the Serpent Tarot and to a new promo video for those who are first coming to the channel, and if so, welcome. You're very welcome here. And also to my loyal viewers who've been with me either the whole way through or have come on board more recently. What I want to use the promo spot for the foreseeable future is talking about a series that I've just filmed, which, at the risk of sounding hyperbolic, and I probably will sound hyperbolic, I think is the most important series and the most important work that I've done on this channel so far. It may well prove to be the most important thing that I do on this channel at all, or even in my spiritual work. So I know that sounds a lot, but this is a series that I feel is really important, and I wanted to highlight it. I wanted to talk about why it exists, what it's like, how best to interact with it, and then also near the end of this promo, talk about how if you really enjoy it and you wanted something individual, you can actually come through my Etsy store and get private readings on this topic. So I'll put something in the description box around the timing for that if you're not interested in the latter, but that will be there for those who are. So this series is what I'm calling the Soul Activation Series. And it came about because in late 2023, I had a really strong download that 2024, and to some degree into 25 and 26, but particularly 2024, there was going to be a lot of soul activation across the planet. We live in interesting times, as they say, and there is a sort of a response by spirit and a connection by spirit around this. And that certainly many people across the planet and most, if not all, of the people who come to my channel will be activated in one level or another around this for their spiritual growth, for what they do in their private life, or even what they might do in the public sphere, the world stage, whatever it might be. But that it was very important to have something to help guide people through that and to give them the support to sort of understand how to navigate it for their highest good. So I was sort of called upon by Spirit to do something in that space. And I thought about the best way of doing it and decided that there are many different structures you could use for this, many different sort of traditions, rites of passage sort of thing, and various sort of spiritual traditions. But I felt one that's probably pretty familiar to some degree or other for everybody is Joseph Campbell's Hero's Quest. So I decided to use that. I'm using it fairly loosely. I'm using 2 steps in the process. There's 12 of them across his quest. 2 per video, 2 per pick a card, and so 6 pick a cards. And it's in alignment with that process, but I'm flexible to deal with whatever the energies are that are coming up and how one would interpret a soul activation energy and the kind of soul realization energy that comes with it within that sort of context of the hero quest coming to their power and knowing who they are. So that's pretty much how I've designed it. And as I say, each pick a card has 2 and they're in order. So it goes in the order. And I'm going to publish those once a week over 6 weeks. And I was going to film one a week and therefore film and then publish to sort of go along with that pattern. But I very strongly had the sense when I started that I should do them all over a space of a few days, which is what I've done. And I think that was so that I could see the linearity across the piles, because one of the things that I put into the intent, I asked Spirit to do, even if it was subtle, was to say if someone chose pile 1 in the first one, that pile 1 story would continue as pile 1 all the way through, so that I could advise you when you make your first choice to stick with that pile, even if you do feel at various times, and this is perfectly valid, that you want to connect with some of the other piles, because these are collective readings, and for some of you there'll be nuances that pick up energies in other piles, and there was some cross-fertilization between them at various stages, so that will make a lot of sense if you want to do that. But I did ask Spirit for that linearity so you could see the whole journey for pile 1, the whole journey for pile 2. And I must say, having filmed it, wasn't that subtle. It is really, really clear to me what the soul activation energies are for the 3 piles in their most pure form. But as I say, you may be a bit of amalgam of some of them, so by all means you do you, but I would suggest having one major one and then look at what else you want to supplement it with, if anything at all. So That's been really interesting and proven to be really powerful. So I really do feel this is like my best work in terms of what I'm bringing to you, and hopefully will be really, really helpful for you. To give you a bit of an idea of the experience that you're going to have, as people know with my readings, I tend to start with a card to help with the pile choice, and then there's a few other cards that I use to set the theme, and then I delve into it in more detail with tarot and other oracle cards. So it's going to be a similar structure. That's going to be the same. But what I am doing is for that entry point, for the type of card that I'm using for you to choose the pile, and for that first structure for the theme, I'm using the same decks in each one. Obviously different cards depending upon what stage we're at and what spirit sort of has me shuffle out, but the same decks, so that we actually get a kind of consistency of the entry point and the process and the feeling. And I've chosen some very specific decks for that. So firstly, the one to bring you in each time is Alexandria Huntington's The Nameless One Tarot, and I chose that very specifically. It's a very esoteric, very beautiful and very esoteric deck. But one of the things that it has that is really unique is a sigil, a positive, I must say, positive sigil for each of the archetypes of the cards. And I felt there was probably no better way on a subliminal and kind of magical level to help people connect in with their soul activation than to use a deck like that. So I'm using the Major Arcana from her tarot, and I'm using her Oracle deck from the Nameless One, and that will be in the beginning of all of them. So it's a Major Arcana card that draws you in, and then the Oracle decks are also there. What I'm also using is Miguel Connor's Gnostic Tarot. When I used the Gnostic Tarot for the first time after I interviewed Miguel and his wife about this tarot, I did say I felt that the picker card I did almost was a prologue to this. So in the playlist that I'm going to have for this whole series, I'm going to actually include that original Gnostic Tarot picker card as a prologue. But I'm also using cards from that deck at the beginning of each of the things for this particular soul activation series. And that's because gnosis, knowledge, wisdom, information are all very important to soul activation. And the third deck that I'm always going to use in the introduction is Patty Oliver's Akashic Truth Oracle, as a way of working out at various stages what aspect of life is most being triggered, I guess, by the soul activation, and also what advice there is right at the beginning going in. I'm also, it's not in the introduction per se, but what I am going to do is I'm also always going to use, or I did use, because I filmed it now, the Lumen Tarot, which is a tarot that has a significant number of additional Major Arcana cards, which makes for a very rich and deep and interesting set of cards for looking into something like soul activation. So that will be used, and then I'll use different other more standard tarot decks as ways of clarification, and other oracle decks that fit the nature of the steps that we're dealing with. So just thought you might be interested in the look and feel of it all. So beyond that, the other thing I would say about this is that when you're watching it, you may find that when it first starts, that's not going to necessarily be when your soul is activated. So do it as a dress rehearsal, see it through, come back to it when you feel it's happening. Some of you, your soul activation could go from the first point to the last point in 6 days. Others, it's going to be 6 weeks. Others, it could be 6 months, 9 months. It could be any period of time. So I'm seeing this as a kind of a preview of coming attractions for most people. Sorry if it's going faster and you're activated and you're coming in just as it's being published, because as I say, I'm going to do once a week, but at least you'll be able to reflect sort of week in about what is going on and see what else you could take from it. So you may watch it in its first publishing and then come back to it at a later time. That's completely up to you. So now I just want to move to talking about private readings if you do want them. So if you're not interested in that, and I'm hoping that this will be enough that you don't need it. I'm certainly not developing this series just to create private readings. I'm just wanting to offer private readings if people feel they want them. So if you're not interested, you can click off now, and thank you for your attention. If you are interested, I'm going to semi-retire some of my tarot mentoring programs just to give myself some bandwidth so that I can actually include these soul activation offerings. And there's 3 that are in play. The first is that you can just, if you want, get a 60-minute recorded video where I go through the first 4 stages for you. So it shows the activation, it shows some of the sort of first steps, and it puts you in the direction, to prime you for your soul activation. The second one is you could get the whole series, and that's in 6 half-hour video recorded things. So very similar to the structure and the feel of the pick a card. I do a similar thing for each of those, and ideally film them and send them to you once a week, but we can negotiate around how frequently or quickly that is done. And the third one is I'm offering 3 60-minute live face-to-face readings, if you want, where we would look at 4 of the stages in each of those, and you'll get that sort of recorded and sent to you after it so that you've got it. That is to allow for you to ask questions or for us to nuance it a bit if you want. So that's a bit similar to my 3 live reading offering. So it's just that it's targeted to the soul activation. So if you are interested in any of those, they are available now they will be available at the point that I upload this promo and I start the series. I would suggest watching 1 or 2 before you come to get it, but if you're really keen, by all means, but I would suggest watching 1 or 2 because you may find that you get what you need from the free series on YouTube. So use your discernment in all of that, and certainly please don't feel pressured. I'm only offering it because people often come to me at my store and say, I really like that pick a card you did, would you do me an individual one? So I'm feeling this is a topic where that might apply. So just trying to be a bit preemptive and have the offerings there. But beyond that, I hope you enjoy the series as much as I enjoyed doing it. I found it fascinating. I hope it's helpful for you. I hope you enjoy it, and I wish you well.